The room went quiet the moment she walked in. Not because she was famous. Not because she was wealthy. But because people can be cruel when they think someone doesn't belong. A few heads turned. A woman near the bar whispered something to her husband. Another man smirked. Someone actually laughed. And sitting at a table near the window, Nathan Carter heard every bit of it. Then he saw her. She was wearing a dark blue dress, simple and elegant. Her long brown hair rested on her shoulders, and despite the confidence she tried to project, there was something in her eyes he recognized immediately. Exhaustion. The kind that comes from spending years pretending other people's opinions don't hurt. She paused at the entrance as if she was considering turning around and leaving. Then she took a breath and walked inside. That was when Nathan stood up. He walked across the room, pulled out a chair, and smiled. "You must be Victoria. I'm glad you came." For a second, she didn't answer. She simply stared at him. Later, Nathan would remember that look. It wasn't surprise. It was disbelief. As if nobody had spoken to her that kindly in a very long time. "My dear friends, my name is Eleanor Brooks. I'm 67 years old, and if life has taught me anything, it's this. Some people carry loneliness so gracefully that the world never notices they're hurting. And sometimes, one small act of kindness can change everything." This story began with a blind date. But it became something much bigger. Nathan Carter was 33 years old. A construction engineer from Indianapolis. A widower? No. Divorced. His marriage had ended 3 years earlier when his ex-wife decided she didn't want family life anymore. She moved across the country and rarely called. Since then, Nathan's entire world had become his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Their little house wasn't fancy. The kitchen cabinets needed repainting. The porch creaked. The old coffee maker made strange noises every morning. But it was home. And for Nathan, that was enough. His friends disagreed. They had spent nearly a year trying to convince him to start dating again. Finally, one of them arranged this dinner. "Just meet her," his friend had said. "One dinner. That's all." Nathan almost didn't come. As it turned out, Victoria Sterling almost didn't either. At 31, Victoria was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing real estate companies in the Midwest. She appeared on magazine covers, spoke at business conferences, managed thousands of employees. She had more money than she could ever spend. And she ate most dinners alone. People assumed successful women never get lonely. They couldn't have been more wrong. For years, Victoria had learned to live behind carefully built walls. Part of it came from being wealthy. Most of it came from being judged. Her weight had followed her into every room she entered. Every relationship. Every first impression. She'd learned to recognize the look. The look that said, "You'd be beautiful if you were thinner. You'd be lovable if you looked different." The look that quietly asks why someone like you would dare to hope for romance. So when her assistant suggested a blind date, she laughed. Then she refused. Then she refused again. Finally, she said yes. And now she sat across from Nathan Carter. A man who hadn't looked shocked when he saw her. Hadn't stared. Hadn't offered fake compliments. He simply asked if she wanted something to drink. The waiter arrived. The conversation began. And then something happened. A man from another table walked by and recognized Victoria. "Hey," he said loudly. "Aren't you that billionaire CEO from the magazine?" Victoria gave a polite smile. The man looked at Nathan. Then back at her. "Wow. Good for you. I didn't know you were still dating." The room became very still. Everyone understood what he meant. Nathan's expression changed. Not anger. Disappointment. He looked directly at the man. "I think she can decide for herself whether she's still dating." The man chuckled awkwardly. I didn't mean anything by it. Then maybe think about it next time. Silence. A long silence. The man muttered an apology and walked away. Victoria lowered her eyes. She had experienced moments like this her entire life. Usually people looked uncomfortable. Or changed the subject. Or pretended they hadn't heard. Nathan did none of those things. He picked up his menu. Looked at her. And asked. So, are we ordering appetizers or pretending that didn't happen? For the first time that evening. She laughed. A real laugh. Small. Unexpected. But real. And in that moment, something shifted. Neither of them knew it yet. But this dinner wasn't going to end the way either of them expected. Because sometimes love doesn't begin with fireworks. Sometimes. It begins with someone simply pulling out a chair and saying, I'm glad you came. The dinner lasted nearly 3 hours. Neither of them seemed to notice. At first, the conversation stayed safe. Favorite restaurants. Travel. Movies. Work. Then, little by little, the walls began to lower. Nathan mentioned his daughter. Everything about him changed when he talked about Lily. His shoulders relaxed. His face softened. He showed Victoria a picture on his phone. An 8-year-old girl with messy blonde hair was missing her 2 front teeth and holding a giant stuffed rabbit. His name is Gerald, Nathan said. Victoria smiled. The rabbit? The rabbit. She laughed again. A few minutes later, Nathan's phone buzzed. A text message. He glanced at the screen. Lily had sent a photo of her dinner. A grilled cheese sandwich. It was slightly burned. Underneath the picture, she had written. I made it myself. Don't worry. I didn't burn the house down. Victoria couldn't help smiling. You let an 8-year-old cook. Only grilled cheese. And you're not terrified? I'm terrified all the time. She laughed once more. Then something strange happened. She realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed this much on a first date. Or any date. Nathan put his phone away. So, he asked, what about you? Any kids? She shook her head. No. He nodded. No awkward follow-up questions. No sympathetic expression. No assumptions. Just acceptance. It shouldn't have surprised her. But it did. The waiter brought coffee. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. Inside the restaurant, the world seemed quieter. For the first time in a long while, Victoria didn't feel like the CEO of a billion-dollar company. She didn't feel like the woman everyone stared at when she entered a room. She just felt normal. And perhaps that was what frightened her the most. Because normal had started to feel dangerously wonderful. They texted the next morning. Then again that evening. Then the day after that. It wasn't constant. It wasn't dramatic. Just small things. Nathan sent a picture of Gerald the rabbit wearing one of Lily's socks. Victoria sent a photo of the sunrise outside her office window. One afternoon, she mentioned skipping lunch because of meetings. 10 minutes later, her phone buzzed. Eat something. That's an order. She smiled at the message. No one had worried about whether she'd eaten in a very long time. A week later, they met for coffee. The cafe was small and quiet. For a while, they talked about work. Then the conversation slowed. Victoria stirred her tea without drinking it. Finally, she spoke. My last relationship ended because he was embarrassed by me. Nathan didn't interrupt. He said people stared at us. He said I made him uncomfortable in public. She gave a small laugh. The kind people use when they're trying not to sound hurt. He told me I would probably end up alone. Silence. Outside, a bus passed. Someone laughed near the counter. Life continued. Nathan looked at her. Then he said quietly, "That says something about him." She raised her eyes. "Not about you." That was all. No speech. No pity. No promises. Just one sentence. And somehow, it landed deeper than anything anyone had said to her in years. For the rest of the afternoon, Victoria couldn't stop thinking about it. Maybe she wasn't the problem. Maybe she never had been. 3 weeks later, Nathan did something that surprised even himself. He invited Victoria to his house for dinner. She almost said no. Meeting a man's child felt different. More serious. More dangerous. But somehow, she found herself driving to his small neighborhood on a Friday evening. The house wasn't impressive. A white fence. A bicycle lying in the yard. A flower pot that desperately needed water. It looked lived in. Nathan opened the door. "You made it." Before Victoria could answer, a small girl appeared behind him. She looked up. Then down. Then up again. "You're taller than I thought." Nathan covered his face. "Lily." "What?" "You said she was tall." Victoria laughed. A few minutes later, they were eating spaghetti at the kitchen table. Lily talked non-stop. About school. About her science project. About Gerald the rabbit. Then suddenly she looked at Victoria. "Do you like dinosaurs?" Victoria blinked. "I don't know much about them." Lily looked genuinely concerned. "That's okay. We can fix that." Nathan started laughing. And so did Victoria. No one stared at her plate. No one watched how much she ate. No one seemed to notice her size at all. To Lily, she was simply another person sitting at the table. After dinner, the little girl showed her a drawing. 3 stick figures. One was holding a rabbit. "This is me," Lily explained. "This is Dad." She pointed at the third figure. Then she smiled. "This can be you if you want." The room became very quiet. Victoria looked at the picture. Then at Nathan. For a moment. She couldn't speak. Because she couldn't remember the last time someone had made space for her in their life so easily. 2 days later, a photograph appeared online. Then another. And another. Someone had taken pictures of Nathan and Victoria leaving a restaurant. By noon, several gossip websites had picked up the story. The headlines were brutal. Billionaire CEO dating divorced single dad. A desperate search for love? Is he after her money? The comments were worse. People laughed at her appearance. They mocked Nathan. Some even made jokes about Lily. Victoria read every word. Then she closed her laptop. An hour later, she canceled dinner with Nathan. Then she canceled lunch the next day. And the day after that. Finally, he called. "Did I do something wrong?" "No." "Then what's going on?" A long silence. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded tired. "This is what happens, Nathan. People turn everything into a joke." He didn't answer immediately. Outside his kitchen window, he could hear Lily playing in the yard. "Do you want to stop seeing me?" Another silence. Then she said quietly, "I don't know." That answer hurt more than if she'd said yes. Because Nathan suddenly understood something. Victoria wasn't afraid of gossip. She was afraid of hope. Afraid that if she let herself believe in this, she might lose it. Again. A few days later, Nathan received an unexpected phone call. It was Victoria's assistant. Miss Sterling left her tablet in the conference room. "We found an old photo open on the screen. I think she might need a friend." Nathan wasn't sure what she meant. Then the assistant quietly explained. 5 years earlier, Victoria had been engaged. The wedding invitations had already been printed. The venue had been booked. Everything looked perfect. Then she accidentally overheard her fiancé talking to his friends. One of them had asked why he was marrying her. The man laughed. Because she's rich. Another voice joked that he deserved a medal. Then came the sentence that changed her life. I'd never marry a woman who looked like that if she didn't own half the city. The wedding was cancelled the next day. Victoria never spoke about it publicly. She simply returned to work. Worked longer. Built bigger companies. Smiled for magazines. And quietly stopped believing that love could be real. Nathan sat in silence after the call ended. Suddenly, so many things made sense. Her hesitation. Her fear. The way she pulled away the moment happiness appeared. This wasn't about gossip websites. It wasn't even about him. She had been hurt so deeply that hope itself had become frightening. For the first time, Nathan realized that winning Victoria's trust might be the hardest thing either of them had ever done. A week later, Victoria asked Nathan to meet her. Not at a restaurant. Not at her office. At a small park near the river. The trees had already started turning orange. She looked tired. As if she hadn't been sleeping. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then she finally said it. I can't do this. Nathan didn't move. I thought maybe I could. But I can't. A long pause. Sooner or later, you'll get tired of defending me. You'll get tired of the comments. The looks. The jokes. She swallowed. And one day, you'll be embarrassed of me too. The words hung in the air. Nathan wanted to tell her she was wrong. He wanted to promise her that he would never hurt her. But promises are easy. Life is hard. So he said nothing. He simply looked at her. Then nodded. If that's what you need, I'll respect it. For the first time, she seemed startled. You aren't angry? No. You aren't going to argue? He gave a small, sad smile. I don't think you've broken up with me. She frowned. I think you're trying to protect yourself. Silence. The river moved quietly beside them. Then Nathan stood. I hope one day you stop believing that you have to leave first in order not to be left. He walked away. And somehow, that hurt Victoria more than if he had begged her to stay. Because for the first time in years, someone had let her go with kindness. 3 days passed. Then 4. Then 7. Victoria threw herself into work. Long meetings. Late nights. More reports. More numbers. But the silence followed her everywhere. One evening, her assistant walked into the office carrying an envelope. It was delivered by messenger. Inside was a folded piece of paper. A child's drawing. 3 stick figures. One tall. One small. One wearing a blue dress. At the top, written in large uneven letters, were the words. We miss you. Victoria stared at the picture. Then she turned it over. There was another message. In Lily's handwriting. I know grown-ups get sad sometimes. But I hope you're okay. For a long moment, Victoria didn't move. The office was completely quiet. Outside the window, the city lights glowed. She looked at the drawing again. No one had asked her for money. No one wanted a favor. An 8-year-old girl simply missed her. And suddenly, all the walls she'd spent years building didn't feel strong. They felt lonely. A tear slipped down her cheek. Then another. She covered her mouth with her hand. Because for the first time, she understood something terrifying. She wasn't afraid of being hurt. She was afraid of being loved. And losing it. Again. The next morning, Victoria drove to Nathan's neighborhood. She didn't call first. She wasn't even sure what she was going to say. The drawing sat on the passenger seat beside her. When she reached the house, she saw Nathan in the front yard. He was helping Lily plant flowers. For a moment, she stayed in the car. Just watching. A father and daughter. Laughing over something small. Simple. Ordinary. The kind of life she had convinced herself wasn't meant for her. Then Lily looked up. She saw the car. A second later, she was running. Miss Victoria. Victoria barely had time to open the door before the little girl wrapped her arms around her. I thought you forgot us. The words hit harder than they should have. I didn't forget, Victoria whispered. Lily pulled back and smiled. Good. That was it. No questions. No blame. Just, good. Nathan walked toward them slowly. Neither of them spoke at first. Then Victoria held up the drawing. You sent this? Lily nodded proudly. It worked. Nathan almost laughed. Victoria looked at him. Then down at the paper in her hands. Finally, she said the truth she had been avoiding. I miss you too. And for the first time in weeks. Hope didn't feel frightening. It felt possible. A few days later, Victoria invited Nathan to attend a company charity event. It seemed harmless. Until they arrived. The ballroom was full of investors, executives, and reporters. People smiled. But some smiles didn't reach their eyes. Halfway through the evening, one of the board members approached Victoria. He was older and had been with the company for years. We need to talk. A few minutes later, they stood alone near the terrace. I'll be direct, he said. The press attention isn't helping. Victoria's expression didn't change. The company has an image to protect. She understood immediately. This is about Nathan. It's about perception. And my personal life affects our stock price? He hesitated. Some investors are concerned. Silence. Then he added the part that hurt. They think this relationship makes you appear vulnerable. For several seconds, Victoria simply stared at him. Then she looked through the glass doors. Nathan was inside. Talking to Lily on the phone. Smiling. Completely unaware. For years, she had sacrificed pieces of herself to earn respect. Worked harder. Stayed longer. Accepted judgment. But suddenly, she felt tired. Very tired. She turned back to the board member. If my personal happiness threatens this company, she said quietly, then maybe the problem isn't my relationship. She walked away. And for the first time, she knew a decision was coming. One that could change everything. The board meeting took place 2 days later. Every seat was filled. Some directors looked uncomfortable. Others avoided eye contact entirely. Victoria stood at the front of the room. For years, she had walked into meetings like this with perfect confidence. Today felt different. Today was personal. One of the investors spoke first. We believe recent publicity is becoming a distraction. Another nodded. There are concerns about leadership perception. Perception. Such a polite word. Everyone in the room knew what they meant. Victoria looked around the table. Then she asked quietly. Do you believe I've suddenly forgotten how to run this company? No one answered. Did our profits disappear? Silence. Did I stop working? More silence. She took a slow breath. Or is the problem that I'm dating a man who isn't wealthy, and that I don't fit your idea of what a successful woman should look like? A few people lowered their eyes. One director finally spoke. Victoria, no one is saying that. But everyone is thinking it. The room became still. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she placed both hands on the table. I spent years trying to earn respect by working harder than everyone else. I accepted criticism. I accepted judgment. She paused. But I won't apologize for being happy. No one moved. If my appearance or my personal life makes any of you question my ability to lead this company, then perhaps you never respected my work in the first place. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then something unexpected happened. One of the oldest board members slowly stood up. I think she's right. Another director nodded. Then another. The meeting wasn't perfect. Not everyone agreed. But something changed in that room. For the first time in years. Victoria stopped defending her right to be loved. She simply claimed it. 3 months later, life looked different. Not perfect. Just different. And sometimes, that's even better. On a cool Saturday evening, Victoria pulled into Nathan's driveway carrying a paper bag from a bakery. Lily ran outside before she could even turn off the engine. You're late, the little girl announced. Victoria smiled. I brought pie. You're forgiven. Nathan laughed from the porch. Some things had become wonderfully ordinary. Friday dinners. Movie nights. Trips to the bookstore. Long walks where nobody talked about business or headlines or what strangers thought. The board controversy had faded. A few investors left. Most stayed. The company continued to grow. Because it turned out that a CEO's ability to lead had very little to do with who she loved. As for Victoria, she was still learning. Some mornings, she still looked in the mirror and heard old voices. Too much. Too different. Not enough. Healing wasn't a straight line. But now there were other voices too. Lily asking if she wanted extra marshmallows in her hot chocolate. Nathan texting to make sure she had eaten lunch. A little girl proudly introducing her at school as, "This is my friend Victoria." Little by little, the old wounds became quieter. That evening, the three of them ate dinner on the back porch. The sunset painted the sky orange and pink. Gerald the rabbit sat on the empty chair beside Lily, as always. After dinner, Lily disappeared into the house and came back carrying another drawing. This one was different. It showed 3 people standing in front of a small white house. Above them were the words, "My favorite people." Victoria looked at the picture. Then at Nathan. Then back at the picture. No one spoke. Some moments are too full for words. Finally, Nathan broke the silence. Do you remember our first dinner? She laughed softly. The restaurant? The chair. She smiled. You pulled it out for me. He nodded. I was glad you came. For a moment, neither moved. Then Victoria said something she never thought she would say. I'm glad I stayed. A long, quiet moment passed. The kind that changes everything. No grand speeches. No dramatic declarations. Just 3 people sitting on a porch while the sun disappeared behind the trees. Real life rarely looks like a fairy tale. It looks like this. Messy. Unexpected. Ordinary. And beautiful. Months later, there was no extravagant wedding. No magazine covers. No headlines. There didn't need to be. Some love stories don't end with fireworks. They end with someone remembering how you take your coffee. Or saving you the last piece of pie. Or making room for you at the dinner table. And perhaps that's the greatest kind of love there is. A love that quietly says, you belong here. As darkness settled over the backyard, Lily leaned against Victoria's shoulder. Nathan reached for her hand. And for the first time in many years, Victoria didn't wonder how long happiness would last. She simply enjoyed it. My dear friends, if there's one thing this story reminds us, it's that the people who love us well are often the ones who see us exactly as we are, and stay anyway. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't finding love. It's believing we deserve it. So let me ask you tonight. Have you ever pushed someone away because you were afraid of getting hurt? Or has someone in your life loved you in a way that changed how you saw yourself? If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And if you enjoy these stories about family, healing, and second chances, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our little family story corner. You never know which story might arrive at exactly the right moment. Until next time, my dear friends. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And remember, sometimes the most extraordinary love begins with something very simple. A chair being pulled out. A kind word. And someone saying, "I'm glad you came." Good night and sweet dreams.